Hi everybody, this is Oksana, and in today's video we're going to be making this fun little pendant. It has a sun here in the corner, either a rising sun or a setting sun, whatever you want it to be, and then I'm also using a rectangular shaped stone, which I have not done in a while, but it doesn't have to be a rectangle. Feel free to use an oval, that would work well also, or even a round stone, maybe not a teardrop. That might not work as well, especially point down, because we need the space here on the bottom to make the sun. But maybe you could adjust it to work for a teardrop as well. And then for the top portion here by the bale, this is from a really old tutorial, this particular design here, but I added some beads to make it extra fun. So if you want to see how I made this pendant, just keep watching. I'm going to start out with 3 pieces of 20 gauge square copper wire. It is dead soft. I got the spool from riogrande.com, and the measurements are, if you guys wonder, like, what did she do to her measuring tape? It was my dogs. My dogs ate my measuring tape. So they are 10 inches. And now I'm going to use 24 gauge half round wire, also dead soft copper from Rio Grande. And by the way, you guys, I get asked, why do you use copper? Why don't you use silver and other types of wire? There's also gold fill wire, etc. So the thing is, the copper is a lot more affordable, and I don't want someone following a tutorial or doing a design for the very first time and using like a precious expensive wire to have it not work out. I think it is a lot better. I'm just using this little tail end of the half round wire, rounded side up, flat side down, and just kind of wrapping it around. I think it's a lot better to do a design in copper, really get the hang of it. Also figure out, based on your stone size, what exact size of wires you need, because I just kind of generically cut them all this one length, but you're going to end up cutting off some little ends here and there. So if you keep track of, what you cut off, was it the front wire, was it the back wire? If you want to be really like perfectionist about it, you can write all that down and then cut yourself silver wire to the exact parameters and, line it up in such a way, maybe this wire just goes to here and then this middle wire is all the way to here, and work it all out so you don't waste any of the sterling silver wire. But I always like to do my designs and perfect them in copper first, and I encourage you to do the same, because it would be a waste to try it in silver and have it not work out. So I just have this little end. I'll trim that off, and I'm going to now, let me just adjust my camera a little bit. So I'm just holding my wire and I'm turning the piece like this, because this wire is connected to the spool, so it has to be turned or it gets twisted. So now we're just going to trim, make sure our little wire ends are on the same side, and now I'm going to press them down, smush them down like that. You can kind of bring them closer as well if there's any gaps. And by the way, for the tools, I have my pliers. I'm using Lindstrom RX 7890, and my wire cutters are the Swanstrom Tools wire cutters. So you just need a pair of pliers and wire cutters. Doesn't have to be these exact ones, just whatever ones you have that you normally use should work. All right, so I'm going to, oh, sorry, I forgot to measure my stone. My stone is a fossilized coral. It's a little rectangle, and it is, oh my gosh, is it perfectly an inch? It's like perfectly an inch, or 25 millimeters. So we're gonna put it where the wire ends are. So here's the wire ends on this side. We're gonna kind of center that like this, and then hold it really tight so it doesn't move, and bend and bend. Let's see how we did. All right, that's pretty good. It stayed centered. So sometimes it kind of bends, like curves forward, so I'm just going to bend it straight again, like that. And now we're just going to curve these wires this way. Okay, and normally I would be bringing these together to kind of finalize my frame, make my bail, but we're doing something a little special this time. And that's going to involve taking this wire. You can do it on either side. You can kind of mirror this design if you prefer the other side, but I'm going to do it on the left here. So I'm just taking this wire, and I just need to separate it so I can use it to weave around, and then we'll put it back. So just kind of separating it, pushing it away from the rest of the frame here. Now we're gonna need a few additional things. So we're gonna need round copper wire. This is 26 gauge round, that's soft copper. And then you are gonna need 2 pieces of some kind of scrap wire. We're gonna use this temporarily, and then we're gonna remove it so you can keep this and keep using it over and over, or maybe you have some little scraps that you wanna use, but basically this is just temporarily that we'll be using it. So what I have is some stainless steel wire. This is 22 gauge round wire. You can use anything in that vicinity. You can use 21 gauge, 20 gauge. It's easier if it's round wire though, because round wire is kind of more slippery, and we're gonna pull it out and it removes easier, and square wire tends to just kind of get stuck. And the reason I'm also using stainless steel is it's a little bit firmer, so less chance of just kind of messing it up and bending it and all that stuff. So, but feel free, other things will work. If you just have like 20 gauge round dead soft copper, that's fine too. Feel free to use that, not a problem. So we are going to be doing a weaving pattern with the 26 gauge round wire that I just showed you. So I'm just grabbing an end of it. It's connected to my spool. And the first thing we're gonna do before we incorporate these others is we're gonna just wrap it around a few times to get started. Like this. Forming 2 little wraps should be adequate. So I'm actually gonna cut the wire end right now. I know it's like a little early. Normally I'd like to do a little more before I trim the end, but it's easiest to do it now in this instance. So the wire end is kind of here on the back. So let me try, and it's actually on the side. Just push on it a little bit, get these wraps nice and together, and push this whole bit. You might have to take this wire and just kind of gently lift it away from the frame so that you can get in there and push that all the way up like this. Okay, so we basically connected the wire right as close as we could to here. All right, so now that it's connected, we can grab those other 2 wires and start our weaving pattern. So there's different weaving patterns you can do for a sun. You can even use more than just these 2 wires to make it, you know, like even bigger. But what I'm going to do, as I struggle to kind of line these up, is first I'm gonna wrap around just the bottom one of these 2 extra wires that I've added, like this. I know they move around, but then they'll stop after you have made some connections. So I'm wrapping just around that. And now I'm going to wrap only around my copper wire. So it formed like a little spike. And now I'm going to bring that up and wrap around both of these. So it's like a slightly taller spike. Okay, and now I'm going to wrap around just my copper wire. Like that. All right, so one more time around that first one, forming a little spike, then just around my bottom copper wire, then around all of them, then just around my copper wire. All right, and now that we've done a few, this is a good time to check and just push it all tightly together. You can also press on it. All right, so now we're just gonna keep going. So if I follow the pattern, then I need to do like this, basically around the bottom 2 wires, around the bottom wire, around all 3 wires, around the bottom wire, around the bottom 2 wires, around the bottom wire, around all 3 wires, around the bottom wire. So here's how it's looking, and I need to keep going for a little bit. It just depends on how big you want to make this little sun portion. Obviously, the more you weave, the larger it will be. You can weave for just a little bit and it'll just be like a tiny, tiny little thing peeking out the corner there. So it's up to you, but I like to finish it on one of the shorter little rays of the sun when I'm done. So I'll go ahead and stop and finish it now. So mine is fairly small, I would say. And to finish it, I like to just wrap a few times around just the single wire. Okay, and we can trim it, but let's not completely finish it. So just leave yourself an end, and we'll work that out in a minute. So we're gonna pull out these wires. So it helps to grab them with your pliers and pull them out like this. All right, now we want our sun to be facing in. So we're just gonna turn this. It should turn pretty easily. It just would have been hard to weave it like here with this like inside of the frame, you know, so I weaved it in the more open area and then turned it inwards. I found that that is easier to do, just tightening it all up. All right, so now we're just gonna bring this like that. Just give it a nice bend, and now we can trim this wire. I didn't want to trim it right away because I didn't know where the back was gonna be after we turn it. So after we turned it, we can see here is the back, so we'll just trim it in the back and just push down on that wire end, and also just kind of push this together so there isn't a gap. All right, so to form the sun, it's gonna be kind of a little curvature here in this corner. So just work with the length that you've made, and that is gonna determine your sun. So here's mine. I'm just gonna bend this a little bit sharper. There we go. I think I'm happy with that shape. And now this wire, we just want to put it back, basically, where it was all along before we like made the sun. So I'm just bending it straight up to line it up with the other wires here. Just like this. And you can even kind of hold it and bend it along like that. So now I'm grabbing my stone, putting it back in the frame. And now we can do the part that we normally do in the beginning, which is kind of bending. Sorry, I just don't want these to crisscross, and they're starting to crisscross. And I think the reason they're doing that is because this middle wire, so it's square, but it got turned and now it's pointing like the angle up instead of the flat side up. So I'm just fixing my little square wires by just giving them a little turn to make sure they're nice and lined up like this. All right, so let's pop the stone back in. Let's bend these wires, these frame wires, just like that. And now we can start kind of curving them so they can meet up in the middle where we will make our bail, like that. All right, and then here where they meet up, I am just going to grab with my pliers to make a bit of a sharper bend there. Right now it's more of just like a curve. See how one side has a sharper bend now, and let's make the other side have a sharper bend and just kind of bring that together for our frame. So now we can do what we normally do with our half round wire. Line these up nicely and wrap around them several times with the half round wire. And then the way that I like to finish my half round wire, I'm just pressing that, pushing it all the way down, taking my half round wire, pulling it from back to front like this. Let's just give it a little pull and let's trim it. Okay, so that's how I like to get started there. And now for my bail, I'm going to take the frontmost 4 wires. So basically my bail is going to be the back 2 wires. So everything that's not the back 2 wires, I'm bending it forward to get it out of the way so that I can wrap around the back 2 wires. This is a bail from a really old tutorial. Since I always do the side swoopy bail, I thought I would do something different this time. So I'm just wrapping this half round wire around. You can just guide it and turn the piece. And I like my height of my bails to be about 3/4 of an inch, maybe slightly less since this one is in the back, so it ends up being like less distance for it to curve. And when you're done, you just trim your wire so that the little wire end is here in the back of the pendant. And we're just going to press down on that little wire end there. And just press on the whole bail. Like that. So now to form the bail, I'm going to bend that forward. I'm going to give it a curve. And I'm going to tuck those ends from back to front. Just like that. And I'm going to press here with my pliers to tighten that up. And it's good if you can press, keep holding that with your pliers while you take these wires and you just kind of bend them up to lock that whole thing in place. So now I'm gonna take one of these wires, I'm gonna do the left one. I'm gonna bring it to the back where I will trim it, but leave myself a little end. And I will take that end and I will tuck it in there and just press down on that, like that. And this other wire, since our bail's already connected, we don't really need it, so I'm gonna get in there and I'm gonna trim it as short as I can. So you can't feel it, but also you will cover up this little portion, so it will not be seen. All right, so now let's lock in our stone. So I'm gonna pop my stone back in here. I'm gonna turn this around and lock it in from the back first. So I need the backmost wires for that, and I'm gonna bend them onto the stone on both sides here to trap the back of the stone. And then from the front, so this side with the sun is already kind of being held in by the sun itself. Let me just push this a little bit here. This end, it's actually being held, the stone is actually being held really well right now. I normally bend the forward wire on the stone, but it kind of is curved onto the stone. But normally what I do is I get in here with my pliers and I just go all the way down to that little wrap, and I put a little bend in my wire to have it be on the stone and be trapping the stone in. But yeah, in this case, I didn't even need to do that. It was already being held really well. All right, so now I'm going to work on the bail decorations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two wires and just put a little curve in them. So they're curving this way from right to left. Just like that. And then I'm going to form another curve, another little swirl there. Just like that. And let's see if I can get in here with my pliers to make this a little bit smaller. There we go. That looks good. And now we just want that to go to the back. You can either keep them together or have little space between them. It's up to you what you like the look of. And I'm gonna press down on this little swirl because it's kind of, there we go, wasn't flat. So now I'm going to trim and push away these little ends of the wire here and just press and and press them both in there. So here is how we are looking so far. And now you can just take these two wires and bring them across this way, but I'm going to show you some additional decorative bits you can do with them. So you can twist. I'm taking the one closest to the front, I'm holding it with my pliers and I'm turning the piece while the wire is being held in place. And because it's a square wire and it has flat sides and corners, what happens is those sides kind of get twisted and they form this sort of effect. This can only be done with square wire. So I'm going to kind of swoop this across and bring it to the back, where I will trim and tuck away the wire end. And let's just press that in there. And to this last wire, we are going to add some beads for decoration. These are copper beads. They are 3mm seamed beads. This is the whole size, and they fit on the 20 gauge wire, just like this. Alright, so apparently my camera stopped recording, so if my wire looks mangled, it's because I had to undo everything I did. So, with the beads, I put 4 beads on because for me, if I kind of bring this wire across the front here, I think that looks good with the 4 beads, but your stone might be bigger, you might need more, so I'm just bending that wire to the back, and then you can either trim and tuck it away here if you have the space, and if you don't, you can just bring it across, bend it up to go here, and then I already trimmed my wire, so I just have the little wire end. So you would just take the wire end and tuck it away here in the front instead, and let me just press on that, press it in there to tuck it away. And that's how we finished our top portion. So now I'm going to show you how to attach this, just so it doesn't move or slide around. I mean, it's not really moving, but just for extra security, we can attach this sun, where the sun ends, to our side here. So to do that, we're going to need a little piece of half round wire, about 4 inches or so. We're going to wrap it around just this single edge wire a few times to get it started, to get it connected. So at least 4 times, I would say. So that was 1 wrap, 2, and 3. And there's exactly 4. And I don't need to cut my wire because I took just a tiny little end there. Alright, so we have the wire connected and started. So now we're going to use this end here. Let's just push it up where the sun starts. Oop, too much. A little further down. There we go. And we are going to wrap around both of these wires. Now, if you can't get your wire under there, just push on this wire to lift it from the stone. If you can't get your half round wire to slide down because it's just too tightly against the stone. Whoops. And this is going to be the second wrap. I think 2 is good enough for this connection. So it's all connected now. And this wire, to finish it off, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to work it underneath this very back wire. And I'm going to connect it to that because it's kind of hard to get in here to connect it to the edge wire. I think this will be easier. And also, what this is going to do is it's going to keep this side from being able to move forward. So let's kind of push the side down how we want it. And then once we connect it to here, it's going to be even more secure. So all you do now is just wrap around this back wire a few times. All right, I think that's good. So we'll just trim that. I will take this little wire end, we'll kind of curve it down and tuck it away under there. Just going to press down on this wire because it was lifted a little bit from the stone. All right. And we've finished off our wire and connected this whole side. And that's it. This is our finished piece with the little rising or setting sun over kind of a desert looking background. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.